Hello. Oh, here we go. Hello, everybody. Sorry about this. I'm having technical problems with my laptop. So I just wanted to come on my phone as I'm loading my laptop. So tell me, everyone, how are you doing? In the Q&A, I would love to hear if you were to say your tolerance for the election. I would love to hear like 1 being like, or 0 being like, you can't stand it anymore, to 10, you're loving it. So tell me in the Q&A box, what's going on? I'm gonna, tell me, I wanna hear it. Okay, let's go to the Q&A. A 5, all right, tell me what's going on. Oh, a 5, there we go. You guys are being very, okay, my account, I gotta, I'm numb or avoiding it. I love it. Okay, a 5. Okay. So today we are going to talk about strategies of how to deal with the election. And one of the things that I'm finding really, really interesting is the, oh, I did not turn TV on today. Oh, way to go. Yet. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I mean, there's 2 parts to the webinar that I wanted to really share with you. And so I'm going to start off with this first concept. So when you think about the election and what's going on with it, what are the main emotions you're having? I want to hear. Stress. What else? What else is really going on? I need to hear it. Oh my goodness. It's a good thing I have my phone here because my computer, I don't know what's happening to it. All right. Frustration. All right. What else? What other feelings? Bring them. I know it's really difficult. Frustrated, stressed, fear. Okay. What's going on with the fear? I'm so over it. So you're like done already. It's like these guys are, oh, some disgust. Oh, interesting. Keep coming. Just bring it. Like, this is really, really helpful. What other feelings are you having? Dread. Okay. Okay. So you're having a lot of different feelings and emotions. And so when you feel dread and you feel sad, you feel all these feelings, what do you do? So we know in the model, exhausted. Yes. Avoid. Excellent. What do you avoid? The news. What else do you do? What else do you avoid? And how can we avoid things? We avoid? Oh yeah, we can avoid social media. But how do we avoid what's going on? Do we go to food? Can we avoid by going to social media? Or sorry, like just watching movies, maybe doing some shopping. Oh, here. Avoid social media, some disgust, fear. Oh, hand sewing. Yeah. So there's lots of different strategies and coping skills that we go to. But a lot of people, maybe some wine. Is that buffering? Yeah, I wish, right? Okay. So one of the things that happens to us is Marlene on this call. Let's just make sure. Okay, okay, perfect. All right. I just want to make sure that people are in here. I don't know why my computer is not working. It's a little bit off-putting right now. So when you think about this, like you have fear, you have frustration, you have like disappointment, you have all these different feelings. So you go to, here, let's just join this. Awesome. It's gonna work. There's a lot of instability. Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna end this. Oh, whoops. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, apparently I have to keep going. All right, let me go to, there we go. Okay. Awesome. So when you think about this isn't gonna work. Okay, let's just, I have to do something different. I'm sorry, everyone. I apologize. I'm like echoing of myself and I'm gonna drive myself crazy. Okay. Uh-oh. All right, everyone here still? Yes. Okay, perfect. I am now the host. Awesome. See, I know how to manage things. Okay. So let's think about, so let's get the chat going. I love seeing the Q&A and the chat. Okay, so you have to just, can you all just put something in the Q&A to make sure that you can hear me? Uh-oh. Oh, you can. Okay, perfect. Okay, just keep it up. Okay, awesome. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, and Marlene is here. Okay, good. Because I saw you were in the other thing, so I was hoping you were in here. Okay, so let me explain some things. Because I understand the weekend eating mentality. So when I say the weekend eating mentality, what are your thoughts? So often, okay, let's all just stay in the Q&A. So that way I can just keep one open. Oh, good. Okay, you're all here. Oh, I love seeing all of you. Okay, let's go in the Q&A, not the chat, because I can only keep one open. Otherwise, it's tough for me. So the Q&A, all right. So when you think about weekend eating, it's, free for all. Why do you think we have this free for all kind of mentality for the weekend eating? Why do you think that comes up? So how often have you said, I've been good all week? Right? Like you're being a good girl. So remember, we have the mean mom and the nice mom scenario. Oh, allow different protocol, reward time, entitlement. You're supposed to party on the weekend. Hey, Cheryl, can you just make your comments in the Q&A box instead of the chat? That'd be perfect. Okay. So reward time. So if you're saying I'm a good girl, I'm behaving, I'm doing well, then it's like you're being punished and you need to have some sort of reward. Okay. So another one is entitlement, lack of structure, different schedule. I just want to relax and not be so strict with myself. Right. Okay. So that's going back. The brain is wired to relax on the weekend. Right. Okay. So even thinking about this, so we can be wired to relax. I can relax and not eat any food. Like it's totally fine. So I can see, I can't see everyone's, comments in the QA. Oh, so if it's better to go in the chat, you want to see people's, then just go in the chat. I didn't know that you couldn't see that. Okay, let's go in the chat. I'm super easygoing. I'll just close the Q&A and I'll just open the chat. Perfect. Okay, so that's awesome. So in the chat now, I want you just to make the comments. So supposed to party on the weekend, being a good, you want to get rewarded. Okay, so this is the problem. And I'm going to bring up what's called the urge jar. So there's two different ways to, the chat covers your face. Maybe I'm the only one. Okay. All right, well, let's just, can everyone see the Q&A if I do it like that? All right, let's just figure it out. I can't see them in the chat either. Okay. So let's just stay with the chat. And then I think actually what you do is you just, instead of having it in my face, you just move it over. I think you can just move it over. Okay. So if you're thinking that during the week it's exhausting and that it's like so hard work, such hard work to do to eat healthy, um, then we got to learn how to process our urges. This you come up with the same weekend rewards. Okay. So if you find you're exhausted by Friday, we're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be exhausted by Friday. When we eat food, we're eating food to feel better, to fuel our body, to give our body nutrients, to give our body fuel for action. So if we're spending a lot of time white knuckling and we're exhausted by Friday and we need a break, we've got to think about how we're approaching food. Now, food, we really got to look at what is the role of food. Okay. So the role of food is what? Tell me, ladies, in the chat. It's for nourishment. It's to give our body all the things it needs to function. So we need good fat. We need good fat because the fat helps our bones move and do all the kidneys like work all internally. We need good protein and we need good carbs. It gives us energy. I'm exhausted by all the discord. The protocol is the easy part, right? So the role of food is to take care of our body, to make sure that we are being a good steward of the body that we're given. And yes, it starts doing weird things. Like I have this thing and I must have eaten something yesterday because it was like so red this morning. And so we are given about our body and we get to just decide how we want to work with it. So I'm going to teach you. So we got it. So if you're white knuckling it and if you're exhausted by the weekend, you're looking at food in the wrong way. You're depending on food to take care of you. You're depending on food to give you comfort. Now, one of the problems is when we have food, we get a dopamine hit. Now that dopamine hit feels great, right? It feels amazing. And you're like, yeah, it feels so good, but it only lasts for a moment. So this is the problem. So the role of food is to nourish our body and give us energy. That's the role of food. But a lot of us are saying, oh, but we want to feel better. And the problem is when we eat food, we actually do feel better for a moment. Because remember, that's how we're wired and we get a dopamine hit. And so we get this dopamine hit. We're like, oh, I feel better for a moment. I'll answer that question in just a minute, Ashley. But it's the dopamine hit just because comes from we're being wired to, because remember, seek pleasure. There's a dopamine hit when we eat. And so we've got this false message that we have pleasure from the food, but it doesn't give us the answer to what's going on. So that's where the confusion is. So then the problem is we get that little pleasure from eating that food. And now I call it chasing the pleasure. So we had it tasted good. We got this dopamine hit. We're like, but it doesn't last long. It didn't actually solve the problem of the comfort. And so now it's like, oh, that's over. And so we have to keep eating the thing to chase that pleasure again. So we just keep eating more and more and more, but we're never actually solving the sadness, the frustration, the disappointment, the discouragement, yet we're still getting a dopamine hit. So do you see how we can understand why comfort food is really a thing? Because any food is really comfort food in that sense, because we get a dopamine hit every time we eat. And that is literally how we're wired, because back in the day, if we had something disgusting, didn't taste good or didn't appeal to us, but we would eat it, we always got a dopamine hit for anything from what we've eaten. And then, so like fast forward to now where we have like refined sugar and flour, and our body's like, ooh, I like the refined flour and sugar way better because they get even more of a dopamine hit. And so, like, I was coaching one of my clients today, and she's like, I just don't really like vegetables. I just don't really like that. And I'm like, well, now that you haven't eaten sugar and flour for 2 weeks and you're going to do that for 6 weeks, what's going to happen is your taste buds and your body is going to adjust to accommodate that you're not having that refined flour and sugar all the time. So it will adapt. Okay, that's a great question, Ashley. She says, should we try to forget about eating food about enjoying food at all? Okay, so I've talked about this, and I'm really glad you brought this up, because one of the things, if you think about life, if food is the only thing that brings you joy, then all your focus is going to be on food. Like, I have to have the food. And think about holidays, right? How much focus of holidays is on food? So I'm going to ask you a question. If your doctor, I used this example with Francis at the coaching call. If your doctor said, you know what, you can't eat food for a month. I'm going to change it up a little bit. You can't eat food for the whole month of December. We're just going to give you like these shots, and they're going to give you all your nutrients, but like you can't have any food at all. Would that mean that you'd have a terrible Christmas? It probably would be harder. But so one of the things I like to ask myself and my clients, it's like, how about let's focus on, like, the food, it has a role, but if we spend more time having more fun in our life and less time using that fun just related to the food, how much better would our life be? So make our food more boring and make our life more interesting. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't discount food, because, food is important, and I want to really appreciate food. I like nurturing my body with food, like cutting it, preparing it, and like cook, like being able to provide for my children. But really, if my focus is only, my joy only ever comes from food, then my life is not going to be as interesting or as fun. So how about instead, so for example, like, and actually I have some amazing webinars coming up for helping you create a better relationship with yourself around Christmas and the holidays, and creating more joy in your life that comes from real pleasure of creating and making and giving and living and having experiences, rather than everything that has to have any sort of joy has to do with food. So we're going to expand our ability to think and create. All right. Does that answer your question, Ashley? Okay. So there's two concepts. So that's one concept, like really focus on the food and what role it has. And let's like give it a place, and then create other experiences in our life to have more fun. And then the other idea is, if you are white knuckling all week and like, I need you to learn how to process the urge. I really want us to understand what the role of food really is, and to stop, like, to break that cycle of constantly turning to food for sadness, for buffering, right? To buffering, there's two different ways of thinking about it. One is to, we eliminate buffering. We eliminate the urges. We buffer to eliminate urges. So even, let's just keep that one definition. So we have an urge and we want it, but we don't have to always respond to the urges. So we're like, okay, I have an urge. I want a chocolate bar. I want to snack. I want to overeat. I want to feel full. I want to eat more than what's on my, like, so that's an urge. An urge is so simple. It's just a desire. It's just something we want. Like, I want it. And so I find a lot of my clients are learning, they're a little bit like almost spoiled, because anytime they have an urge, they're like, oh, I'm just going to answer the urge. And it's actually really tricky. Like, I've noticed this with some of my retired clients, because they no longer have all those restrictions they once had. And so in the past, they're like, no, I'm working, I can't do that. But now it's like, they can just do whatever they want. in a sense. And so they're not having, it's like this really unbalanced harmony in life. That's another webinar, but it's very interesting. So when we have an urge, it's to simply desire. Instead of just going to every desire you have, we can turn on the nice mom voice and see like, hey honey, I hear that you want to have that ice cream now, and I hear you want to have that snack now, and I know you want that, but that's not going to serve us, because that doesn't help our bodies in the best way possible. So when we can have the nice mom talk to us and say, yeah, I hear you, like I totally hear you want that chocolate bar, but we're not going to do that because that doesn't serve us. So much different than like, I want it, I deserve it, what's wrong with me? Kind of like one of you said about entitlement. How is that going to serve you? That's not. So if we're doing a lot of white knuckling, and the reason I have this little bead is because I have 2 jars, and how the urge jar works is these are unresolved, like this is the one jar, and these are the processed urges. And so it's really amazing to see how when you have an urge, you put it in your hand, you can use a button, you can use whatever, and you're like, I want it. And then the nice mom starts talking and says, yeah, I want it, but this isn't going to help us. We don't need snacks. It's going to ruin your appetite. It's going to raise your insulin. It's not going to help you. It's not going to serve you. You have lots of stored fat on you, and you really want your body to be fat adapted. And so you're like, oh yeah, I really want it, but I hear you. Okay. All right. And then you just like let it be in your body, disappointment or the sadness, and then you put it in the jar, and then you start having a compilation of all these urges that have compiled over and over. And then you start seeing evidence and start learning to trust yourself. Like, I can process an urge and it's not a big deal. So even if you took this urge to negative thoughts, like Susan said, I'm exhausted by all the discord. The protocol is the easy part, right? So even the urge is to want to like scream and shout and just get really angry, because anger and frustration, those are like, all we need to do is to say, oh man, when that guy talks, it just really bothers me. And you just process the emotion. Because one of the problems we have is that when we find we're like buffering and we're having some problems, I always like to ask myself, my clients, what emotion are you trying to avoid right now? It's really interesting, isn't it? It's because if you can just be allowed to just feel an emotion, you're like, oh man. So like when Susan said, I'm exhausted by all the discord, you're like, oh, I'm just so exhausted. And you can just let yourself just be exhausted. And you can just sit there and just be like, yep, this is me. I'm just a human feeling really exhausted. And you can just let that discomfort be in your body, and having that urge jar and just holding on to it is like, oh yeah, here it comes. And emotions are just literally vibrations in our body. They're just there to tell us like, oh, hey, human, you're having an experience. You're experiencing exhaustion. You're experiencing whatever, right? It's telling us that. And we're like, oh, okay, I know how to solve for that. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. So does anyone have any questions about that? So we don't want to be white knuckling, because white knuckling, what that's telling us is that we are avoiding emotions. And when we avoid emotions, what are we doing? We're not letting our body process them. We turn to buffers. So whether it's food or social media or like indulgent emotions, we're not giving our body the opportunity to process and to like work things through. And then we kind of reach this limit, and it's like, we blow. And then we just like, then that's what can happen, like binging or whatever that is, because we just no longer have the stamina to keep it all in anymore. So when I was an elementary school teacher, I talked about anger mountain. And so it's the same kind of concept. It's like you're feeling stressed, you're feeling worried, and you're like, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And you could have physical signs like, your heart starts beating faster. You could maybe start sweating a little bit. Your hands will be sweating, whatever that is. And you have these little, like, it's like drip, 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 like all these little experiences, like someone spills something on the floor and you're irritated, but you don't deal with it. You just like, oh, okay, and just keep going. And then you get an annoying email of something, or a neighbor is mowing their lawn and you want to be laying down and you want it to be quiet. So you have all these little disruptions, and you have different feelings, but you're not acknowledging those feelings or letting them in. And so there's little ones. And the next thing you know, you get to the top and you just blow up. Right? So, there's lots of expressions like the straw that broke the camel's back. You think about like how many little drips would fit into a cup, and eventually it just like overflows. So it's really catching those emotions right away. And then we're not white knuckling anymore. We're just like being present for ourselves. Okay. So that's one concept I wanted to talk about. Now, the second concept I wanted to share was there is a lot of fear in the unknown. So we don't necessarily love change very much, because change, right? We're wired, seek pleasure, conserve energy, and stay safe. So with change, when we have change, it involves like there's instability. We don't always know. And like we have all these things coming up. So we have a lot of fear with change. And fear is actually a really good thing. So if some weirdo is following on the street, you're going to feel fear, and our senses are heightened. We're going to, like, adrenaline will start coursing through our blood, and we'll turn to get help. And that's an excellent thing. So fear is really good. Okay. So, but fear, we just have to let it process through our body, and we can listen to our body, and that's wonderful. So then fear can turn to worry. And what worry says is, hey, you should remember to that there's bad things that can happen in this world. Worry is like emphasizing fear. Okay? So then, if you keep in a state of worry, so how many of you are worriers? You don't have to say. Hardly anyone's written in the chat. Is everyone still here? Oh yeah, here we go. We just got some unfavorable test results for our poodle today, which made me really sad. Got the phone call when I was ready to eat, delayed my meal, and dealt with the sorrow first. Before Dara, I would have eaten a pint of ice cream and cookies. Aww. Isn't that amazing? You can just sit in that sadness. Oh, and I'm sorry about that unfavorable test for your puppy. Oh, you're a worrier. Okay. So worry. Oh, yes, worried always. I'm a worrier. Oh, this is so interesting. Okay. So why do you think you're a worrier? Why do you think you're a worrier? Tell me why. Because what does worry do? Fear of the unknown. Okay. I like to be in control. Okay. Is that even like possible? Have to control things because something bad might happen. Oh, interesting. Feeds more worry. I worry all the time. I feel like I think ahead and have a plan. I can avoid hard things. Steals your joy. Oh, wow. So many different thoughts. Okay. So this is what happens when you stay in worry, and worry is what's called an indulgent emotion. It's like a Band-Aid emotion. It covers what's really happening. That's so interesting. So when I say that to you, like confused, that's an indulgent emotion. That's not a true emotion. It's a covering, like a Band-Aid emotion. Okay. They don't serve us. They don't get, I also call them pretend emotions. They're real. All right. So now fear, if you don't let it just go through your body, can turn to worry. And worry is like, the times when you can't sleep at night because you got it going on around in your head. What if this? What if that? What if this? What is that? I can make this plan. I can do this thing. What if he says this? What if they do this? Okay. Does that sound familiar? That turns into anxiety. Okay. So how I define anxiety and how I look at it is that anxiety is going to your worst case scenario and staying there. So when I was a new mom, my anxiety was my child is going to choke and die. My child's going to drown in the tub and die. Like my child's going to get run over by a car. Like I just thought of the worst thing that could happen and I would just stay there. And it would just like be horrible. And so right now with the election, so we have a fear, which is normal because we are wired to have fear. Fear is an emotion. It's a true emotion. We have worry that something could happen that could be a detriment. So, and we're not going to get into a political discussion. Yesterday was a hoot. I coached one of you and you were very on the one side, and then I coached another person and they were very on the other side. And it was awesome for me to watch and just to see like how powerful our thoughts are, because especially in politics, we can think that it's like a fact, like this person did this person did that, this person stands for this person stands for that. Like, and you feel so adamant about it. But really, they're just thoughts. Like, and if we peeled it all back to what's a fact, is very interesting. And remember, the fact is always a circumstance. So fear is normal and fear is good. And we like fear. Fear is great. But then we go to worry, like, don't forget, you should have some concerns about this thing. Don't forget, like someone could say something negative to you. Don't forget, they could raise the taxes and then you wouldn't get as much money on your retirement. Don't forget, there could be a possibility of terrible things happening. Okay, that's what worry is. And then because you spent so much time in there, you literally go to your worst case scenario and you just stay there. So this is the difference of progression. So what I'm wanting you to really think about is, okay, so I'm going to just take one of these things because something bad might happen. Okay, so this is normal. There is a fear. So COVID, someone could die. Fear, you could get the political party in power who you don't agree with, like your morals, your standards, you don't agree with them. And they're a political party and they're going to come in and they're going to maybe change some policies. And there's going to be things like let's take abortion, for example. So if you have a political view or you have a religious or moral view about abortion, that is a fear that babies could be killed. And so that's something that's like inside of you that you feel very strongly about. There is a fear that could happen, that it's going to go against your moral code. Okay, so feel it, be with that. I can sense that feels really scary to me, that this is going to happen, potentially could happen to babies, and then the repercussions of the women or whatever that is. Okay. But and you just let yourself just be in that fear and just be like, okay, I can feel that, I can process it, and I can acknowledge it. And then you're like, and then you go to your higher brain, because when we feel an emotion, it's just like a vibration in our body. We let it be, we don't resist it or avoid it. And then we can operate from our higher brain. And then our higher brain could say things like, whatever those are. And then we can like solve it and we can resolve it. But if we don't allow the fear to be in our body, then we can't really operate from our higher brain and we go to worry. And that's where we spin and spin and spin and spin. And what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if this happens? And if he says this thing, and what would I do for that? And then, they posted this on Facebook, and then that person got upset. And then they said this, right? And you just worry. And is our family dinner ever going to be calm again? Are we ever going to go to the grocery store and feel safe? Like whatever that is. And we just spin and spin. Don't forget to worry. And then we go to here. So what I'm wanting you to do is just allow yourself to be in the fear. Just sit there in discomfort. Because guess what? Eating, what did Cheryl say? She said, before Dara, I would have had a pint of ice cream and cookies. Well, the problem with eating a pint of ice cream and cookies is you still have the test results, the unfavorable test results. But you're compounding it by going to worry and eating all the junk, and you're not actually just letting yourself just feel that feeling. So now you're going to be doubly, triply disappointed because now you have all the calories, you're going to feel sick, and you just made that negative emotion even worse because you avoid and resist it. All right. Does anyone have any questions about fear, worry, and anxiety? Or do you have comments on like what I said and what do you like relate to in that? So as you're thinking, I'm going to give you an example, like a real-time example in my life. So last year I had my son and my daughter. I have 5 of them, but these 2 particular, they both had basketball games. Oh, thank you. They both had basketball games on the same night, and they both had 2 teams. Like there was an A team and a B team for both of them. And we never knew if they were going to be on the A team or the B team. And so because the coach wanted to change it up depending on like who they were playing, they'd stack the team or whatever. And so I would never know until Wednesday morning or maybe it was like at noon. I wouldn't know what time they had their game at, where their game was going to be. Okay. So it was like the circumstances, don't know, whatever, I could do that. Yeah. Right. So I would get concerned. I had fear about me being able to meet all the obligations that I had. So this is what I would do. I had a contingency plan because otherwise I just worry. I'm like, am I going to be able to do it? I'm going to be able to, all of those things. And so I just said, okay, what can I do? So when I would get into that spin, I'd say, oh, Dara, do you have all the information you need? If you don't have the information you need, you're not allowed to think about it. Then you have to scroll it up, Mary. You can scroll up the chat. So do you have all the information you need? And if I don't, then I would say to myself, no, you're not allowed to think about it right now. Or you make your contingency plan. So this is what I did. I had one number of or 1 or 2 numbers from each of a couple of parents' numbers that I could contact. Plus, I also had my friend who she has two adult sons who live with her, and she lives really close to the school. And so I would say to her, hey, listen, there's a potential that this child might need a ride. Is it possible for you at last minute? Would you be able to do that? And then she would be able to tell me if she could or not. And then if she couldn't, then I could phone somebody else. I had a few other people I could call and just say, hey, just in case, would you be able to? And then that way I could I could acknowledge the fear that I'm a mom that has this situation and I want to get my kids to the places they need to. But I stopped it there. And when I wanted to go to worry, I'd say, no, not allowed. Let's work it out. Okay. And then I'd go in because I allowed myself to feel the fear. I'd move forward. Anyone else have any other comments about that? Because I have one more concept I want to teach you. Anxiety can also lead to health problems. So what are you teaching us is so important. Absolutely. So anxiety is super unhelpful. It really does. It like stress, we know for those in my one-on-one group in February, we're going to do a deep dive into like cortisol and what happens when we go through menopause and how we don't produce the same levels of all of our testosterone and progesterone and all of that, and how it gets stored in the body and how it holds on to it. And that leads to some really unhealthy weight gain and weight storage, and really does affect our health. But anxiety definitely has very difficult, like mental health ramifications. And so, because like when you go to anxiety and you stay there, we are triggering our fight, flight, and freeze instincts. And so when we're in that fight, flight, and freeze instincts, then we are like operating out of like high adrenaline. We're on our like it's not a healthy place to be. And so when we think about right now with the election, and in Arizona and other states that they are open, you can just carry a gun legally, and people are seeing people in America walking around with machine guns. That is high anxiety, because it is like life or death. And so our fight, flight, and freeze is instigated, and we're on this high alert. And what I like to say is, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Okay, you should write that down. But like when you think about anxiety in your body, okay, so all of you just go, I'm just going to invite you. Like when you really think about what it feels like in your body to feel anxiety, like think about it, like your heart is racing, you're sweating, your like hands are sweating, like you are on such high alert, and like the blood is going to your brain because you're, what's it called? Adrenaline is so high, it's ready to like, yeah, no wonder my eye, Nancy. When your adrenaline is high, it's because it's like, okay, you're ready to respond at any moment, right? To fight, flee, so run, or freeze, like get into like stealth mode, right? So when you are at that high level, you actually aren't able to think from your higher brain. You really literally are at that lower brain. So thank you for making that comment, Cheryl and Nancy. Yeah, no, you have a high IQ. If we are spending a lot of time in our lower brain, we're not operating out of our best self. That's all. Okay. Any other questions about that? This is huge. And I'll talk more about it in like, for my one-on-one people and for my group people and in my webinars, I teach about that. But I just can't. After coaching several of you on the political thing and knowing about weekend eating, I'm like, I got to help you all. Okay. So I have one more tool I want to teach you. And if someone really wants to get coached, you just put your hand up and I'll bring you on. Okay. I don't want to deny anyone. Okay. The last concept I want to teach you is probably one of my favorite. I love them all. But this concept is called the 50-50. And one of the things that I really want you to get from this is that in order to have a balanced life, we need to have 50-50 in our life. We need to have 50% of our life positive and 50% negative. And so one of the things that I've noticed so much about my own life in this way is when I have to do a task, like I had to do this the other day, record a 3-minute video and send it. Well, it's not that easy. You have to like download it. You have to put it on a Google Drive. You got to share the link. Like there's a bunch of steps and it can get kind of frustrating, and there's a timeline, and I have all the things. In the past, I would have been like freaking out if I couldn't figure it out the first way, and I'd watch a YouTube video. But because I had so much anxiety and I had like the time pressure and I felt so stupid and I wasn't smart enough, and what's wrong with me? I should know this. My kids should know this. Why should this be so hard? That when I'd watch these YouTube videos, I was
I was just so like, this is so dumb. Like, why do I have to do this? And I just get so panicked and I'd feel so like uncalm that it would take me so long to figure out how to do that. But when I just realized, oh, this is just the 50% of my life, part of my day that's like uncomfortable and not easy for me. Okay. All right. I thought it was going to be something else, but apparently this is what the 50%. So now I'm not resisting it or avoiding it. I'm just like, okay, well, I do know how to solve problems. I don't really want to solve this problem right now, but I like I like that they want this video, and I like that I'm doing that. And so then I'm so much more calm when I'm watching the YouTube video, and I can just like bring it down, watch the video, figure it out, and then move forward. So, oh, very good. My tunnel vision, I get tunnel vision with problems. I didn't realize it was anxiety. Yeah, totally. It's just anxiety. So it's like worst case scenario, this is so terrible. But it also, Mary, has to do with this concept. It's like, oh, if I was doing my life better, I should have figured out how not to have problems. See, that's always interesting. So even taking an example, you know how there's always fires to put out in life? There's always going to be fires. There's always going to be a problem. And so instead of saying like, oh, I have so many problems in life and everything's so terrible, it's like, oh, this is just part of my life that's hard. Oh, interesting. So I thought about that totally, the test results. You have brought so much joy, and now this is the other 50%. Right. So today I was, it's interesting. So I'll talk to clients and they'll say, oh, and this happened and this happened. And it's interesting because they will have difficulties every week. And I'm like, yeah, this is what happens. Like life will always have difficulties. And so one of the problems, especially with perfectionism, it's like we become perfectionists because we think if we can solve the problems, we can avoid them forever. But that's not possible. That's not reality. Yeah, we can, like, so take for example, like I don't have a weight loss problem anymore. I have like learned how to take off the weight. I've learned how to keep the weight off. I've learned how to eat for my body type. I'm learned, and it's still a process, right? I'm still learning because like I'm a human, but like I don't really have all the mind drama and all the difficulty with weight loss anymore. I don't really. Like it's kind of, this is just kind of who I am now. But I did tell a few of you this week that like I still feel like I have chubby cheeks. I know. I have to like remind myself, no, these are not chubby cheeks. Anyways, I digress. So but that doesn't mean that. So I used to think that when I was 50 pounds, when I would lose the weight, I used to think skinny people were actually happier people. Like I honestly did. And I think a lot of people think rich people are happier because they're rich. But we all, no matter what kind of human you are, you always have the 50-50. And so we need to stop expecting like, oh, if life could just be no problems. Well, that's not realistic. So instead of resisting the problems, because they're always going to happen, you're always going to have some sort of fire. And you're like, oh, okay. I thought by the time I was 70, I wasn't going to have problems anymore. Okay, well, I guess I have new problems or I have whatever. And it's okay. It's totally fine. So we just don't have that avoidance and resisting. Okay. So the next part about the 50-50 is we've got to make some decisions. So for example, with whatever political power, you're so sweet, Mary. Whatever political power you want in, there's going to be pros about them and there's going to be cons. 50% good and 50% bad. So the one party you want goes in, they get voted in, but they're still going to have the cons because they're going to have to deal with this and that and this and that. And then if let's say the political party gets voted in that you don't want, so now that's a con, but there's still pros because now they're going to be a voice for the people, or they're going to keep them intact, or whatever that is. So no leader is perfect. No solution is going to be perfect because there's always going to be the 50-50. So the problem is when people avoid or resist that there's going to be some negative, we have to just embrace that there's going to be negative, right? Like when we were young and for some of us who had babies, it was like, oh, it's just going to be wonderful and beautiful. And I'm going to do it all right. And I'm going to not be like my mother. And I'm going to, right. And then when I'm older and I have a job and I have money and then I can do whatever I want. Well, guess what? Yeah, you got a job and you can do whatever you want, but there's still going to be problems. Like you're going to pay taxes and you're going to do all the things and you're going to have to pay for your car and you have to pay for insurance. Like it's just, there's always going to be the 50-50 in every scenario, right? So let's just get an awareness of this and just really start thinking in your life, oh, so the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like even when I lose the weight, even when I have the political party I want, even when I get married, or even when I have children, that's not going to solve it. No, it's not. Okay. So going back to my urge jar, what we've got to do is we've just got to allow ourselves to find the emotion. That's a hard thing for a lot of us. It's like I ask you to feel and you're like, I don't even know, right? A lot of us haven't really been taught to like articulate our feelings. I mean, when we were kids, it was like, you're sad, sucker. You're sad, I'll make you a favorite dessert. You're sad, whatever that is. We don't have an emotional intelligence. And we're just gaining it now, which is really empowering. So there's 3 steps to self-confidence. One is to learn to trust yourself. So for my clients, yeah, it's like it's sad, right? So they know, like, we're going to start trusting yourself. So they're creating a protocol, they're making a food plan, and they're learning how to honor it. Francis, can you just tell me what's sad? I can't really. Oh, is it sad that there's no perfect leader, or is it sad that this 50-50? Can you just tell me what you mean by that and I can address it? So the first step to self-confidence is like learning to trust yourself. That's why we make a protocol and we follow along. Oh, yeah, I understand what you mean, Francis. It's sad that we're just learning about our emotions. Yeah, that's okay. It's like, I just love that we're like, hey, we got this. We're getting this. This is awesome, right? So we learn how to trust ourselves. The second step to self-confidence is learning to process any emotion and being okay with it. And then the third is retelling the story we want to tell ourselves. And so right now with America, they're having a really hard time learning how to tell the new story. And that's okay. It's going to take some time. But we're a different American than we've ever been. We have social media. Everyone has a phone. We have news reporters. We have bloggers. We have YouTube. We have inundated with everyone's opinions. So my challenge for you is to allow yourself an opportunity just to be with you. And just to give yourself time to process your own emotions and be your own person. So the most important relationship you have is with yourself. Hands down. The most important relationship you have is with yourself. So you have the opportunity to now explore this relationship with yourself. We don't need to turn to food to buffer. We don't need to turn to shopping to buffer to feel better. We just get to turn to ourselves. And we get to learn to process our own emotions and to just really understand what it's like to be with ourselves. Okay? So plan some time just to like say, hey, who am I in this election? What do I stand up for? What do I think is important? And just really get clear on that. All right. I have a few minutes now. I'd love to hear any of your questions or concerns or any of that. By the way, can I just tell you how much I love you guys? This is like a Friday night, and I just felt so impressed to share these things with you. And so in the chat, I would love to hear what is your main takeaway? I'm sure you got more than just one thing, but I want you just to focus. If you were like, okay, these are the things you taught us. What is the one main takeaway from everything I shared? So there's quite a few of you on here. So I want to start hearing them. Okay. Thanks for the time. Oh, 50-50 for sure. I smiled. You make me feel at ease. Aw, I feel better. Oh, a better feeling of calm. How do you have a better feeling of calm? That I need to sit with fear and it won't turn out like I hope it would. Yeah, it's okay to feel fear. As you're typing in, I want to just say something that's really important. A lot of us, because we weren't really taught to feel our feelings and understand that, a lot of us worry that if we start feeling sad, we might get depressed. But the problem is, the reason why people who are sad get depressed or who could become depressed is because they avoid and resist it. So then sadness amplified turns into depression. Okay. So we need to focus on the emotions we are dealing with and just let things swirl around us without letting it get to us. Right. So it's almost like water off a duck's back, right? People can just say things. I'm responsible for me. They're responsible for them. I have my thoughts. They have yours. Do you have all the information you need? Oh, so good, right? Not allowed to think about it until you have all the information you need. Emphasize that multiple thoughts can come from one circumstance. Absolutely. Right. And what I recommend with all of you, is that you take one circumstance, you do your thought download, and then you can do separate models with each one. Remembering that life is 50-50, I have a tendency to want to avoid anything difficult. No, it's not silly, Ashley. You are wired to feel like stay safe, seek pleasure, conserve energy. So I'm literally teaching you to do the opposite, because in order to live your best life, you need to evolve as well in our minds. And so that's super fun that we are becoming so much more involved. It's wonderful. If not, you're not allowed to think about it. That's right. And you can be the nice mom and you're like, okay, do you have all the information you need? If not, you're not allowed to worry about it. You need to go. So it's so good. I'm feeling calm and have placed it in God's hands. Is that a cop out of feelings? No, that's called faith. So faith is believing in a higher, without having to have, faith is believing in something and not having to know the how all the time. I have faith that it can work out, and that's okay. It's like a belief in something bigger than you. So it's not a cop out. No, faith and believing are feelings. All right, everyone. Can I just say thank you again for coming? I had such a great day. I started my day at 8 o'clock and now look at 6. I love what I do, and I'm so grateful to serve all of you. If any of you want to know what it's like to work with me, I do have my group, and it's not too late to join. And I know my children are getting hungry. In fact, my daughter's she's made dinner, so I'm they're waiting for me. And then if you want to work with me one-on-one, I will have spots opening. So you can have a consult and we can talk about that. All right. Love you all. Thanks again for coming. And I'm going to repost this for all of you. If you have any questions about any of it, just let me know. All right. Bye-bye.